Assalamu alaikum. Greetings to our audience and those watching on social media live. We are streaming here in Camden, New Jersey from Muhammad's Temple of Islam number 20, where we have, under the administration of Brother Minister Wasim Muhammad. I must thank him for this amazing opportunity to host this panel discussion with our illustrious guests from CROW, which is the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Again, I'm your host, Sister Dr. Nicole Muhammad. I'm a wife, mother, designer for women, and most importantly, I am a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the greatest title and the greatest thing that I can be, any of us can be. The Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was formed in 1987 to keep the words and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad alive. And we cannot thank the archives enough for the work that they've been doing over the years. We are joined today by a producer and host, Sister Kim Muhammad of CROW, who has been a member for many years and pioneer in the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we also have the amazing Brother Captain Wali Bahar, who was the personal captain of the messenger of God, the messenger of Allah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I'm so honored, I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to um, discussing with you your experiences. And we just thank you for being here. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
First, we thank you. You could have been anywhere for this Savior's Day. You've had options in any place you could be, but you chose to be here in Camden, New Jersey. If you could talk about why you chose to be here in Camden and what has been your experience so far here this Savior's Day weekend.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, this is my first time, and yes, I'm Sister Kim Muhammad, but I really prefer the title of just Heifer. You know, the messages have really, that's the greatest title that we could have as Heifer. And I came to the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad back in 1989 in search of knowledge. You know, I had been in the church. Uh, I wasn't in any particular church at the time, you know, just looking, but everywhere I went, I was still empty. And there were people talking about the messenger on Black Talk Radio. I didn't know who the man was, but you know, it strikes an interest when someone says Elijah Muhammad. I'm like, a black man with that name? Um, and so when you begin to take a look at it, if you're searching, and I did search to try to find the book, didn't even know how to get the book, didn't even know what Message to the Black Man really was. And I even went to the mosque, but I went to the mosque looking for Elijah Muhammad, but I didn't find him. So um, it was Crow that I was introduced to because I was out trying to find something to do in the community. And I ran into Brother Veneer, and everyone knows if you run into him, you know, we all have the same story. And of course, that would be my real introduction to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I had already found the book, which I found to be fascinating, but it was to learn more, which was even more fascinating. And that has been, for me, the greatest thing that I could have ever come into contact with. You talk about living, you haven't, to me, really lived until you actually taken a look at the teachings and then embrace them. And so then you ask me why Camden. You know, um, my experience with Crow and what I saw in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad um, was something that I had always desired. Number one, I saw a man who didn't speak in such a way that most people would speak, and they probably would laugh at him. And but the things that he was saying were so sound, And yet you could listen to intelligent people, but they couldn't produce or even say the things that he was saying. And so, Crow, I found myself doing something that I had never thought about doing, but I knew I wanted to be involved. I knew I wanted to work in the vineyard in some way. And Crow afforded me that opportunity. And then when I look at you, I said, oh, so I'm not crazy, because you can't be touched by this message and not see the work that needs to be done. And there's enough work for everyone. I will never be able to thank Brother Wasim enough for one day I had started our social media post for Brother Veneer Crow and the Crow TV. And then I came across a post that he had posted talking about work. And I thought, sometimes I'd be feeling like I'm crazy because all I can see is the work that needs to be done. And the work seems like squashes everything. And he posted something about work. What the messenger said: work if you're tired, work if you're frustrated, work.
Right.
And what I saw was myself, but I also saw that in you all. But it wasn't just the work was producing something.
Mm-hmm.
I saw people growing. And so when I look at you all, I feel a kinship because I feel like there's a oneness with us in terms of what it is that we need to do. We didn't get a chance to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but we do have his words, and his words is about activation. If you really believe, if you really have faith in him, then we know we have a lot of work to do.
Thank
So
you.
that's why I'm here.
And how has your experience
My
been this
experience
Savior's
has
Day?
been, oh my goodness. I've cried twice.
Mm.
The children, I got so emotional. I was like, ashamed. Please, y'all, don't. I hope nobody see me. I'm just the tears was just coming down because you saw people do more in 4 hours than the school system is doing in 8 hours. And then I met other older young people who are growing up, moving out into the community. And a lot of times you raise children, you don't know if those children are going to come back to help you on their own. Not that you have to force them, but I saw young people who are here at the temple who are grown, they're working, and when I say working, they are really working, and they are helping to build a nation, what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted us to do. So I'm filled. What can I say? I told my sister, I told another friend, I'm just overwhelmed. And the sad part about it, it's not a lot of people you can share it with that they can understand what you're saying. So, like I said, it's been the experience of my life. And I realized that this is the work that what I've been involved in, this is exactly the type of vision that I witnessed being a part of Crow. So
All praises due to
you are
Allah.
doing a great job.
Thank you so much. All praises due to Allah. Did it take you, how long was it before you found the teachings of the messenger and you realized that this is the truth? Do you remember what that was like?
Well, let me just say this. I came from a church background. So when you open the book and you look at who's that mystery God, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad know how to attack you real quick. And I had to put the book down because I was so shook up being a Christian. It is frightening. And I put it down for about 2 weeks, and I said, why would I buy a book and then be afraid of it? And I had to pick the book up, and I had to continue reading. And the more I read it, the more I was hooked. And so when I came in contact with Brother Manir, of course, he talks about everybody, and I was at a church trying to do some type of activism, and he talked about the Negroes there, and I was like, wow, this is very disrespectful to the people
Hmm.
here. But his confidence and belief in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was so great. That's just the way he operated. But I did want to learn more about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So for me, it was just a matter of how can I dispute it? So you get drawn in because I'm trying to see if I can, maybe there is not totally true, but I really couldn't find any holes in it.
Right.
So what you got to do? You submit. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, a inferior knowledge submits to a superior knowledge,
Right.
and that's what I did.
And how can you refute the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Brother Captain, sir, would you talk about your decision to come to Camden this year and
I can't
your
hear you.
experience? If you
So
could talk about your decision to come to Camden, New Jersey, to Temple number 20 this year and your experience this Savior's Day weekend.
where you want me to start at? I could start. I could start in 1937.
You can start where you'd like, sir.
1937 would probably be something that I'd have to do something to tell you what I'm talking about. There wasn't no TV, wasn't no telephone, wasn't all the modern stuff you had. But after being born in 1937, I was born Bobby Lee Moorhead, and I was born into between a plantation and a farm. My mother was on the farm, my father was on the plantation. There was a mixture of white and Indians.
Mm.
And when I come up out of that, when I was about 5 years old, my father died, so I didn't have one. My mother got disappointed, turned out alcoholic, and I ended up on the streets. So when I got about 9, I left Mississippi because they didn't have nothing, and I went to St. Louis where I found my first TV. And at the first TV, first thing I saw on the TV was a young man on a TV playing a violin. I was about 13, 14 years old. And I asked my uncle, who was that? And he said, that's a guy that's from the island. He's not like us. And I learned his name was Louis Walcott. And then after that, I left St. Louis and I went to California. And in 1949, I began to study books, but I didn't know how to read. So I began to find a way to study a man named J.J. Rogers. He was a writer about black history. And then I found out my culture, found out, that that was something other than colored folks. And I got into that by 1952. I became what's called Black Power. And in that concept, I ran into a guy named Malcolm Little. And then you know more about him probably than I could tell you. So, I could spend some time with that, but I won't. And he introduced me with a nigga, house nigga, yard nigga. He said house nigga and field nigga. I saw a house nigga, yard nigga, and a field nigga because I had 3 uncles on the plantation of Roy, Walter, my dad. And I used those to do the involvement of my culture. And then I heard a song, White Man's Heaven, Black Man Hell, and that became an interest to me because it had so much depth, so much information about where I came from. I feel like Mississippi was Black Man's Hell, and I thought I was in into heaven, but it wasn't mine. And I learned the man that did that was Louis X. You may know him now as Louis Farrakhan. But by the time he got to Louis Farrakhan, he had written a play called Negro Felt Spelled Backwards, which I fell in love with that. And then after that, I found another man, and this was around about 3 years after that, 60, 58, I ran into another young man. And that's when I found out what a brother was. His name was Silas Bell. I was Bobby Lee Moorhead, and I was a hustler, and he was a gambler. You probably heard of him. I doubt you
Yes.
heard of me. But anyway, I'm trying to go through this story real quickly to get to why I'm here.
Yes, sir.
And from that, April 27, 1962, a brother named Ronald T. Stokes got killed at March number 27, and I got my ex behind that. And that's when I became a Muslim. And that same year, in April, that same man, Malcolm X, came to California to speak of you kill a Muslim, you must be killed. And I was at that time just getting the X. And at that time, if you got an X in the FOI and you had to kill, you killed. And so that's where the riot started from. And by 1963, my brother had married a woman called Harriet, and I married her friend. And then that went on for a while, and he went on. So about 1965, I became a minister in Santa Barbara, California. For Elijah Muhammad, my first converts was Joseph Stevens. You probably know him as Joseph Bay, a Black Muslim bakery. But in Santa Barbara is where it started. He ended up in Oakland, California. I left Santa Barbara, California, and ended up in Chicago, where the mission sent me to Akron, Ohio, where I became a minister. And I was a minister for Akron, Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, and Cleveland, Ohio. And I ran into some difficulty because I was teaching the messenger was God, and he was my father. And another man named Theodore Humson reported me. The messenger called me in. He said, "Brother, I hear you teaching something I didn't teach you. Where you get that teaching from?" So I said, "That's how I say it, though, Apostle." He said, "Well, go back and teach what I say." And I went back, but I didn't have nothing to teach. He called me back. He said, I want you to no longer be called Bobby Lee 2X. I want you to be called Captain Wally Baha. And that's how I got that name. And he moved me. He said, "Go back, find a mother to take your place and come to Chicago and be my captain." And that's how I got to be Captain Wally Baha. So I went along that journey until he passed. He passed in 1975, and I was with him in 1974 as a prelude to what I would encounter in 1975, where I met Wallace in 1974, and there's a history with that. And then after that, I left Wallace in 1978, and my brother came to me and asked me, "Wally Baha, how could you sit by and see the messenger's work being destroyed and not doing nothing?" And that's when I saw an idea that brought me here today, because I saw Crow Foreman, that brother's name, Munir, and he had just got that name. And I knew then, I know now, what I didn't know then, it was going to be Crow, and Crow would be my home. About 4 years ago, I returned to Crow, and I was at a funeral. Funeral with Prince Artichiel. And I was there, Farrakhan was there, a lot of the notarized, notary people was there. I got ready to leave. I went to walk up the steps, and I heard a voice say, "Brother Wadi Baha." I said, "That's me." She said, "I am." I said, "That's my language. I'm Munir's wife." I said, "Oh, brother, I'm gone." And from that day on, I began to try and reach her from that number, never got her. So eventually, I ended up going to Crow. And I was about a little over 3 years ago. And when I got there, uh, I was amazed at seeing people that never saw the man, you know, living a life that people were trained to live, they were born to live. And I became so engulfed with it that I began to define it as my home because I didn't see nowhere else I need to go. And in that, uh, one year, a brother came on a bus load of believers from New Jersey. And that's when I met Minister Wasim. I didn't know him, he didn't know me. And I ended up last year coming here. And when I got here, I found the evidence of what I've always seen would be the results of the members of Elijah.
Okay. Can you hold the mic closer?
Pardon?
You might.
You can cut me because I can talk all day.
You could just hold it closer.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure
So
we.
when I saw this brother and learned of his history, last year I came here and I told him, "You're going to be my minister." He didn't have nothing to do with that. I said that. And this year, I didn't expect to be honored with a woman that I told her, and she told me she wasn't particularly being wanting to be called what I called her. I called her the Mother of Muhammad Speaks because she had such a study and such an engagement with the remembrance of Elijah. And this year, she's here. That's the sister here. Now, to show you the end of my journey is that I'm Captain Wali Baha only because Elijah said it, and I can't go nowhere if there's no remember of him. So I'm at home. I don't have nowhere else to go.
Yes, sir. Well, we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Um, also, Brother Captain, um, could you just talk a bit about your first encounter with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? And I believe it was through Silas, Brother Silas Muhammad.
No.
No? Your first
Uh,
meeting with the messenger?
no,
No?
pardon me, I can't say no.
No.
He and I came in together, and we were both coming off of divorce. And I was not looking for a wife, and he wasn't looking for a wife. We were trying to find our own way. And a sister that was married to one of the messenger's sons named Akbar, her name is Harriet, they divorced, and the messenger sent her to Chicago, and I heard she was coming. So I told him, we were staying together. I told him, I say, there's a queen coming, and I'm going to try to get to meet her. And he said, well, who are you talking about? I said, her name is Harriet. He said, I already got that. So that ended that conversation, you know. So he ended up marrying her, and I ended up marrying her best friend. And that's how we really got to know Elijah, because he got to be the captain on the West Coast and had a chance to meet Elijah before I did. And I was ministering in Santa Barbara, and he had a meeting with Elijah. It's my first encounter. I had never met Elijah, but I was ministering for Elijah by mails, letters. I had written him and told him I wanted to minister, and he wrote me back and told me, it's easy to sit and say you want to fish, go out and catch a fish, and I'll tell you if you're a fisherman. And I chose Santa Barbara. And in that, uh, Silas was transferred back to Chicago. Now, before that, you have to answer your question. He had a meeting with the messenger in Phoenix, and I was ministering in Santa Barbara. So when he got ready to go to the meeting, he took me. And when we got to the door, the messenger greeted him and asked him, who is this brother you bringing with you, and who do you think you are can bring somebody to my house I did not invite?
Right.
So I immediately say, dear Holy Pastor, I can leave. And he said, sit down. And that's how it started. So there's a conversation about that encounter, but that's when I knew him before I met him and was teaching for him before I met him. But when I met him, it was almost like he was disappointed to meet me, you know. And Silas eventually went to Chicago. I proceeded with him.
Well, hold that thought, please, Brother Captain. We're going to take just a quick break, and we'll come back
Okay.
on the other side.
Join us, the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to celebrate our 38th annual Founders Day on Sunday, March 9th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. as we embark on our 38th year as the archives of the Nation of Islam. As we continue our commitment of sharing the life and legacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, your support ensures that we continue building this institution of higher learning. We look forward to seeing you Sunday, March 9th at Crow. Call 773-925-1600 for details.
Captain Wali Bahar and Sister Kim Muhammad. You both mentioned Brother Munir Muhammad, and I just wanted to take a moment to explain to our audience to make sure that they know when we're talking about Crow and Brother Munir Muhammad. Brother Munir was a larger than life, one of the founders of Crow, along with Brother Halif Muhammad and Brother Shahid Muslim. So we cannot ever forget those wonderful founders of this organization. So, Brother Captain, if you could continue about your first encounter with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Um, I stopped in, I think, Ohio, where I was ministering, and he had given me my name
Yes.
and brought me back to Chicago. And when I arrived, uh, he had a meeting with myself, a brother by the name of Raymond Sharif, who was the Supreme Captain, and he was telling Supreme Captain that I was the captain. And Raymond Sharif asked him, "When do you want me to start teaching him?" And the master told him, "Who said I need you to teach him?" And that's all I know that he said to the captain. Uh, uh, he didn't ever say I was his personal captain. He said I was his captain. The reason I say it's personal because no one I had to answer to and no one did I take orders from. And everything that I did is because he asked me to do it, and the only someone I answered to was him. And everything he asked me was personal.
Yes,
So I
sir.
call it personal
Right,
because no one else can claim or know what he told me.
right. You're one of a kind.
Pardon?
One of a kind.
I don't know about that, but that's what you say.
It
And,
appears
and the
so.
reason I make that, and I don't say that jokingly. He made me a captain, and people think I'm joking when I said I'm the captain of nothing. But then, if I asked you what I'm the captain of, you would have to say the same thing, nothing. I was not the captain of the FOI. I was not captain of the mosque. Then what was I the captain of? Waiting for Elijah to give me the order, I didn't do nothing. So I always called myself the captain of nothing, and I define myself as nothing. So whatever you say I am, don't ask me to prove it.
Okay, yes, sir. The captain of nothing, but it also seems like everything. We're talking about the messenger.
That's your,
That's right.
well, that's a lot to prove.
Um, I would like to also, if you all could talk about, I when I think about coming to a point of being able to receive something and being able to receive something so great like the teachings of the messenger. He teaches us that he's bringing us the truth, the light of truth. Um, and for anything to grow, for things to be great, you have to have some kind of foundation. And a foundation is crucial to the success of anything. If the foundation is messed up in any way, you're going to have problems somewhere along the lines. So if you could talk about the foundation, just a little bit about your lives, going back, or your upbringing that you feel has contributed to your, the gift of being receptive to the teachings. Many people hear the teachings or invited out, and they're here once, twice, um, and we may never see them again. But here you both are, all these years later. So, what can you think about or attribute to some of that foundation in your life?
This may sound amusing to you, but uh, my wife asked me once, "Why you always got act like you got something to say and don't say nothing?" And I don't know how to answer that, but that's how I feel when you ask me that question because I have so much to say in part of that. And when I get through, you probably just ask me what I said. But anyway, I'm gonna try.
Yes.
I'd have to go back to where I come from, and I'd have to go back to tell you why I don't have education. I have to go back to tell you the first book I read in order to tell you how my principles are. I didn't go to school with books. In 1937, 1938, in Columbus, Mississippi, there was no school for black people. And my aunt taught me before I even knew what a book was how to read nature,
Mm.
the difference between a horse and a mule, between a goat and a sheep, and she would teach me that and then teach me what that meant. And out of that, I began to be able to verbally say things equivalent to animals, but be talking about subjects that they would develop. So I guess it's a unique understanding I have. I don't have an understanding by knowledge, of knowledge, for knowledge. I have understanding that there was no knowledge. That's natural with me because I learned from nature. So the principle of I reply and answer to you is either based on nature, natural, or unnatural. In all the teachings that you have from Elijah Muhammad, you would find those to be the principle of guidance for your understanding.
As Islam is our nature.
I like talking
Mhm.
to educated people.
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you this: when Iman Mas, the man who runs the president of the United States of America,
Yes, sir.
he reminds me of myself because I'm not like that. And the reason I refer to him is because he ain't like that. He uses artificial intelligence, and I don't have intelligence, so I can't be artificial. I mean, I say it as a joke, but it's really a reality. It's like a degradation for you as an intelligent woman for me to say I don't have that, and I never needed it. I never even thought about it until someone says it's artificial. I've always known intelligence that I didn't have, but I didn't know it's something I didn't need to somebody named it artificial. I'm sure it wasn't talking about you.
Well, and yet you have the supreme wisdom in the midst of all of
I
this.
remember you said that. I didn't.
And your
I
teacher.
accept what you say. Don't ask me to prove
Yes, sir. I won't.
it. But I say that to show how natural it is. If I speak from nature, you from your own natural. If you had no education, you would have said that because you understand what you see, not what you hear. When Elijah first met, not wait a minute, you didn't take me there. Let me stop. You have to forgive me. The young brother sitting out there, he has a word for what I'll be talking. And I'm not privileged to tell you what he tells me. It's a word that tells you to shut up, but a word that's used to say that. I would be embarrassing myself to tell you what
I
he
can
said.
imagine, Brother Captain. I can imagine. Sister Kim, would you talk about your foundation a bit?
Well, I would say my foundation came from the fact that I did grow up in the church. So I did have some awareness of God, knowledge of God, as they tell us it's supposed to be. So, but coming into the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I saw something so different and so miraculous because, if you are in the church, they say things like how uh, God don't need our help and that he can do it without our help uh, and impossibilities. And you look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he would be someone no one would even think to say, oh, he's a messenger. I mean, look at him. Look at his background. Look at the way he talks. I'm educated. I got a PhD. I have a JD, and I live in the C suite. These are things that people would automatically reject him. But yet, many times when we look at the scripture, if that's where you want to go, God is using someone who you would least expect. And this was a man, if we are looking at the scripture, that no one would suspect. We talk about the thief in the night, the comer by night, where this, for me, was who this person was. And then as you look at this teacher, and like I said, what draws you in is I'm reading his works and I'm seeing not only he's saying things, but he can prove these things. I see the work. I believe, Allah, God is with me. Even though he's calling the white man the devil and they attacking him, but none of these things stick, in terms of the attack. I see brothers, you know, um, we have to pray for our brothers. We really do. But those brothers under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, You saw real men who were willing to give their lives for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Is that correct?
I did mine.
Okay. So this was to me was something that was absolutely fascinating. And then to get involved in the work, the more you get involved in the work, what I was able to witness was miracles based on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I give you an example. We were going to the jail. I'm still fairly new in Islam. I don't think, I had grown as much as I have today. And we had been speaking with the person over the jail, and I had written letters to him to please let us in the jail to speak, to the prisoners. And so he referred it to the chaplain board. So the chaplain board, we ended up going to meet with the chaplain board. There was some other people there. I can't remember who all was there. And so the white men began to speak, the white chaplains, but there was a Wallace follower there, and they tossed it to him. And I guess he wanted to embarrass Brother Munir, and he said, "Well, brother, who is God?" And Brother Munir didn't hesitate. He said, "You looking at him. I'm God," And I just sort of got back in my chair because I had never seen anyone perform like that. And Brother Munir proceeded to challenge the man. You know what I'm talking about because
Yes,
he
I do.
knew he was a Wallace follower. So he began to crush him right there in front of the white chaplains that were there with him. He couldn't dispute it. So, it's these things that when you're involved in the work, you're seeing the miracles take place in front of you. And what are you going to say? You just say, "All praises due to Allah. I'm being drawn into this. You are who you say you are. You are the messenger." And as the Quran said, produce a chapter. We haven't seen anyone be able to produce a chapter like this. So for me, what am I supposed to do? But you may not believe if you're not involved. Like you mentioned, you come uh, one Sunday or every other Sunday or once every 6 months. How is your faith or your belief is going to be strengthened unless you get involved? And so, like I said, I've seen the attacks. You all have been attacked. And I realized even in the attack, for every attack that came against us, we prevailed. All because we stayed focused on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. If there was a problem, it was always centered around the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is what I witnessed. This is what strengthened my faith. When I saw what you all went through, it strengthened my faith. So every day, when you see these things like this, it just should strengthen us. And this is what has been my journey. And this is where I stay. That's why I try to keep my head down in the work and reading Muhammad Speaks because I see the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I realize that we may not see it the way he actually had it, but we should be able to have pockets of it. Brother Wally can probably attest to the fact that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad built communities around this country. So that's what gives me encouragement every single day.
Yes, ma'am. And I can relate to so much of that. Just thinking about learning about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his history, the tangible evidence. This is not a man who was just talking or trying to inspire people. He produced, if we look at the leaders that are given to us who have produced very little, if anything, and the messenger with a third grade education in the early 1900s producing farms, schools all across the country, trucking, importing. I mean, the list goes on. Clothiers. I mean, the list goes on. And you mean to tell me that this man is not divine or special, at least? Um, yes.
you get a chance to see a person in action, and you are a doctor. You have people here that are educated, and we look at the word leadership, and I think one of the young men spoke at the podium the other day about leadership, the ability to be honest, to be transparent, to be a visionary. I mean, this was the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Then I saw someone who didn't get a chance to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but could take those attributes and push this teaching forward and challenge anybody that would come up against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. At the time that I came to Crow, there were not a lot of people talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So, in a way, I really didn't understand a lot, because I was like, well, if he was such a great man and there were all of these people that followed him, where were they? And here was this man, like Captain Baja said, he was challenged, but I couldn't understand why were they not shouting to the mountaintop
Mm-hmm.
about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I also got a chance to see Brother Veneer um, break down anyone that wanted to come against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I saw him prevail, not just from that standpoint, but also in the way that we were able to move and make things happen, all based on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Mm-hmm. And talking about Crow and the organization, can you talk a bit about why it's so important, this history that we have? Why is it so important to our people, and where do you see Crow going in the future?
Well, I think it's important to our very survival if we plan on surviving. you know, um, I think there's so much work to be done on so many levels. I see, hopefully, to make it more a visual library so that people could go online and see the works of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because you have the Jewish museums, they have all kinds of artifacts, they have visual displays and everything. This is what we need. And when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about fall of America, one of the things he talks about is the destruction of our educational system. We don't have no black history for all practical purposes. I mean, we're in Black History Month right now, and there will be no mention of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who did so much for Black people. And yet, for some reason, our people are afraid to even mention his name. But when you look at the Muhammad Speaks, and certainly Captain Bahar would know better than me, I see articles and pictures of these people who bore witness to the greatness of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from all walks of life. And yet today, they're afraid to mention his name. So I would defer to Captain Bahar, but I want to see more of
Mm-hmm.
a visual library, and I would also love to see more people. I know he said they may not be around, but love to see more people bear witness to the truth of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who had an opportunity to be there.
Brother Captain,
But
any thoughts, or if you could tell me a bit about how you came to know that this man was the messenger?
uh, excuse me, I have a slight cold
Yes, sir.
that y'all gave me here. I didn't come here with this.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
But when I go back, I'm gonna tell them y'all gave me this. But I didn't come in the mosque because of God, uh, righteousness. I came in the mosque immediately when I heard the white man's the devil. Bam, that's the truth. I
Yes.
knew that without a fact, and that's why I learned the truth, and that's when I know the devil is not a lie. Because if the devil is a devil, then the devil is the truth. If God is God, then God is the truth. So what I found with Elijah, the coin of truth has two sides to it. One is called the devil, and one is called God. And both is the truth, if that's the truth. So when you understand that type of teaching, I say I too didn't have the education because the man with a fourth grade education was given an assignment to read 104 books. So if he can read 104 books with a fourth grade education, I should get an understanding with no education at all. Now that may seem convoluted to those of you of higher understanding, but that's the difference than you and those who have studied knowledge and came up with artificial intelligence. See, you have mutated into something that education only trained you to be. But others become educated, and that's the only understanding they have. But by you being a Muslim, you have found the nature of that others are learning, and if they get them out of that, they were savages. But you were civilized when you got taught, and now you're a doctor of that which don't even civilize them. So when you see a man like Imam Moss, I don't like to speak of a theory unless I have a fact. When you see a man like Imam Moss and know his history, and see a man like Trump and have experienced his history, and see Trump submit to him, you know there's something going on that you've been taught to see and never dreamed you would live to see it. I don't see God coming in a person. I see the will of that was in the person in reality. What I see taking place in America is not the book called The Fall of America. I see civilization being torn apart even if no book has been written. That's what we're faced with, not during my time of belief, but in our time of reality. When you cut your TV on, when we get off the mic and go to reality or go to your school, they're not only tearing up the structure or foundation of military, but they're tearing up the educational system. That's because there's a fault in it somewhere. So all the faults that makes us slavery, and then once America is gone, there's nothing left but you to teach us. So I see a value in you, and that's why I told the minister he's my minister. I didn't ask him to prove it. I said it. And whatever I say you are, I prove it. So if you don't like him, I'll prove why you something wrong with you. You know, so when you learn your word is all you got, be careful how you use it. But by me being nothing, I can use it the way I want because I ain't nothing anyway. So that's the amusement that I live in the remembrance of Elijah and the wisdom of Elijah is not what you hear is taught. It's what you see being said. When Elijah met, are you done? You stop?
Yes, sir. Just one moment. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
I can feel you telling me.
God come to destroy unrighteous and to set up righteous. We have been lost from our home for now a little over 400 years. God come to destroy unrighteous and to set up righteous. We have been lost from our home for now a little over 400 years. We are now trying to find the way home. Yes, sir. But when we read the history of our forefathers coming into America, well, not say coming into America, they never would have been here if it had been left to them. Since they was brought here by force of those who wish to commercialize on their labor. That's right. Why not you tell them, I was not here until you brought me here. That's right. Now, if I am a burden to you, yeah, why not take me back where I came from?
We find the history of the Nation of Islam coming only a generation after the emancipation of enslaved blacks in America.
if you would continue.
When that stop.
Well, we're just talking about your experience with coming to know the messenger
Oh,
and
oh, yeah.
how
The
he was
fall
the
of
messenger.
America. Yeah.
Oh, the fall of America. Before we get to the fall of America, I have to give clarities of how the ability to write a book called Fall of America. A man with a third grade education met a man that had no education, but had been trained with knowledge. He didn't have to study it. His father trained him and then found a vessel called a mother and put it in her. So in that that now that little history there, without going into it, that person came to America, spent 20 years in America before he found us. And his mission was to go looking for something he didn't know what it looked like, but he was told to find it and save it and didn't know what it looked like. So what happened is after he spent 20 years finding the location as a white man, in the concept of a white man, he found the worst part of him to be the best part of the black man. So what he did, he went to Detroit, the bottom, and in there he raised about 25,000 people or more talking, and they heard what he said, and the best they saw is a prophecy. And prophecy is when something is coming. So they that's what they heard him teaching. But when the man we talking about saw the same teaching, he told the man, "Let me tell you what I see you said." What they heard and believed. They heard and believed and saw a prophet. I have sight of what you said and see the end of prophet. I see the Son of Man coming to destroy a wicked world, the Mati, that history, that history. But now, this is a man that of fourth grade education. He can't read, but he can see what's said, and he got a language he developed from a poison book. He said, according to the Bible, not the Holy Quran, this is Elijah. According to, not Muhammad, it's Elijah. According to the Bible, I see the Son of Man, the Mahdi, coming to destroy a world of wickedness. That's how the fall of America was first seen in that moment. And I learned how to see what you say rather than hear what you say from that moment. That's why I'm able to show you what the message wrote in Message to the Black Man, not the black woman. He wanted the black man to see a man destroy a man, not a woman being destroyed.
We can't refute the physical, right? When we see, we can't dispute that.
See, that's because you're intelligent. You ain't false. That's natural, but you respond. I didn't teach you that, and the school didn't teach you. But you saw something that naturally you saw it because it was simple enough a fool could see it.
And we're just so blessed because the messenger, he gives us language and information that a baby can understand. We have our students, our youth, who learn what we learn, and they understand it because it's natural. It's natural to us, the black man and woman. Um, Anything you would like to share, Sister Kim, about the fall of America? Or I just also would like to hear a bit more about how your role has evolved in Crow over the years, because I know you hold and have held many hats. And we talk.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
May I assist you in asking that question? Asking her if she can deny. See, I have a tendency to call people things or what I say they are. And I have a name for you. I'll tell you after it's over. But I named her the mother of Muhammad Speaks. She didn't quite accept it, but I can defend it. You might want to see if she'll deny it.
Ma'am.
I'll just say it. I said it.
I think the title is too big for me. I just prefer Happer. You know, it's just so much work to do. And like I said, I when I see you all, I see the work. You know, I have worked a job, uh, been to school, helped at Crow, all of this, and the same things that I've done. You all have done the same thing and still kept the temple going. I mean, you just don't miss a beat because you see the bigger picture. It's bigger than you, and that's just how I see it. It a part of leadership. Uh, I can imagine for those who want to step into that role, you don't sleep. I'm not even in leadership, and I don't sleep because it's so much work to do. I looked at the performance. These little children did a 2 hour production. They were babies, and they pulled it off. But it was not without the assistance of parents and teachers who put in a lot of hard work with the vision and everything. So for me, it's always thinking about, what else needs to be done. It's so many things that you have to constantly wrap your head around that needs to be done. You know, it's it's just no, the sky's the limit because whatever you think you've achieved, there's still more to achieve. So all I can say is I do whatever needs to be done, whatever is asked of me. I try to be true to that because I think that's really important. Like I said, that honesty and integrity, I got a chance not only to see that in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I got a chance to see that with the person that I was working with that was always about constantly pushing you to be better, always telling you the truth, whether you liked it or not. And, you ended up and you had to, I saw people walk away, but then others, they just submitted to the truth and they just said, okay, he's telling the truth. And you just fall in line and do what needs to be done. And sometimes it's hard. But when you see something bigger than yourself, when you see uh, that this is something that not only gives you life, but can give others life, and then not only that, you want to be the living, breathing example of that thing that you say, that you believe. The Muhammad speaks, as far as I'm concerned, constantly reminds me of what these people sacrifice. See, I don't take it lightly. The sacrifice that you and this team give up every day, I recognize the sacrifice that those people make. Not only were men willing to give their lives, women were willing to give their lives for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I understand that today, and that's how I feel. No matter where I will be in the world, I can't accept you vilifying the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because I don't think anybody is qualified to vilify him. Based on what? I don't see what you're doing unless you can produce what he produced. So for me, it's the title of helper will be sufficient for me and to just continue to do the work. I understand, this is the problem with America. We are consumed with titles and stuff. But as Brother Baha said, we are looking at the fall of America. What good is the title going to do if nothing is here? You know, we see in movies how, oh, let's just take Gaza, okay? We see what it looks like. Well, that's what America is beginning to look like, even though we don't see the buildings destroyed, but we're seeing lives destroyed. So, why would I want to be part of that? I'm trying to survive and save my life. And I realize the only way I can save my life is through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am. Um, you talked about that commitment, and because of this being, there's nothing greater than being a helper of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And there's so much work to be done always. And we can talk about how we are individually and what we feel individually. But we also need to do things in groups, group operation. Um, so would you talk about, please, the longevity of Crow? Aren't we going into 38 years of
Sometimes it's lost on us how long we've been doing this because you just do it. And sometimes I don't even think about the number. It really just doesn't matter. It's just what you do. But I guess to someone on the outside, 38 years is a long time. 38 years to even be alive, today with the way we're losing so many young people. But for me, it's just natural, and as long as you live in it and you're involved in this environment, this is what you do. And as I said, the work doesn't stop. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the only one with a period behind his name. So we know there's a lot of work to be done. And more importantly, you hope that we can find the young people who will begin to understand how important this is, not just because we're saying this, it's important for their survival, to have the blessings to be able to receive this teaching. And you talked about that, receiving it. That's a big thing. It's hard a lot. Let's look at this. Sometimes people grow up in these environments and they don't really receive it. They'll say, well, I mean, you ask the average person today, they'll tell you they're a Christian. But if you look at their life, it doesn't look like a Christian. One of the things I also got a chance to see in my involvement in this was what faith looks like. I always in the church wanted to see faith. I would hear people say that. There's that scripture, if you have faith the size of a grain of mustard seed, you would move mountains. Well, I didn't see it. I heard people say it. My Lord is my Savior, Jesus Christ, love, how they say it. But what I saw was something different. A very selfish person, caught up on themselves, always want to be seen, and blah, blah, blah. You know the story. But to witness faith of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who never missed a beat in spite of all the attacks, and then to have the opportunity to work with somebody who never missed a beat, no matter how many attacks, is, what am I supposed to say? I'm a living, breathing, as brother is a witness, I'm a witness bearer. He says he's the history. He said he's the history for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Well, I can bear witness to what I witnessed based on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So for me, and what I would tell anybody, I would want them to get involved to help strengthen their belief and find someone to link yourself to help you with your belief. Because the other thing is, when you have someone that has faith, and I'm telling you, in the beginning, sometimes when Brother Manir would say things, I wasn't always so sure. But it would end up that somehow that thing would be verified, Brother Wali Baha. And one example I will give you as I shut down was the interview of Tony Gill. I was aware that Brother Manir was going to do the interview. I had no idea that Tony Gill had one of his scholars, a PhD, to call in. And what I love about Tony Gill, he was an erudite. He prepared a beautiful, I would say, piece to lead into the interview. But the person who had the doctorate degree did not fully understand what she was up against. And that was, something for me, even again, early in my development, to say, wow, whatever I'm involved in, this is some very deep stuff. Because these people fight like nobody I've ever seen before. You see what I'm saying?
The confidence.
The confidence was absolutely amazing. So I have been able to witness things that I only can say you would have to experience it. And until you experience it, and the only way you can experience it, you have to get involved. So I can imagine, right. So I can imagine what Captain Baha has experienced, but I can say Allah has blessed me to see things that I would have never seen unless I came into the tent.
Yes, all praises due to Allah. I think this is a wonderful time to open this up to audience questions for our guests. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
My name is Sister Tajane Muhammad. I'm enjoying the conversation. Thank you so much for both of you and what you have to contribute. I'm curious as to the advice that you have for young people coming up in Islam. How you get your legs strong? Because as a high school teacher, I'm facilitating a lot of instructions with them, practicing for their letter, reciting. But what advice do you have, or can you share a moment where you knew Islam was right for you and how they can recognize that decision in their own lives? Salam.
You want to answer that, brother?
Oh, yeah. I'll give a reply. Uh, Education is fine. Education is necessary for the world you live in. Understanding education is different than learning the knowledge is taught. Understanding education is when I come here, I see it in activity. I don't see it in books. I see what books are taught that cannot be taught, but books help advance it. But what I'm looking at here is innateness, not inheritance. And when I look at, I give you a prime example. I came here. This was a rostrum, and this rostrum there were chairs turned into a dining room, and in the dining room I saw it clean up, and I saw the leader of it participate and direct it, and then participate in the cleaning and participate in the removal. And education can't teach you that. That's innately. That's not dictatorship. Dictatorship is I tell you what to do and you do it, but innately you know how to do it with what's being done because you grew into being done. So what I saw when I walked into the door is an educational system in the operational sense, not in the books. Everything that was done from the time I hit the rostrum was a rostrum, most beautiful rostrum I ever saw, and so it disappeared. I'm still in the chair, and it turned into a dining room that I didn't see nobody giving instruction for anybody to cook. I didn't see nobody giving instruction for anybody to serve, and I was served. And I didn't have no servant, and I was clean. There wasn't no dirty dishes, and I saw the convention of the dining room turn back into a mosque, and I said, "Damn, this thing is going awful good. What kind of structure is this? That's education. Education is not something you receive in a book and can't see it being there."
Make it real.
Yeah.
I was want to know why. I want you to know why this is here. That's my minister in charge.
Yes, sir. And that's a testament to the leadership. When you have great leadership,
Yes.
whatever your leadership is, you fall in line with that leader. And
I saw it.
yes,
I
sir.
saw him stand there and preach till he got tired and left a subject that didn't even put to teach. And I saw him get off of here and take the garbage out after everybody ate, and I sat down and ate with him. Now that's not somebody telling somebody to do something. That's somebody doing what you want to do. If you eat something, clean up what you eat. Whatever you teach, let them see you doing it,
Right.
or the teaching is no good. This is the first educational system I've been in and saw the operation of it before I left.
All praises due to
And
Allah.
and I bear witness to that because part of my whole journey with Crow was I've actually done whatever needed to be done. And I do believe education is not just the books, you have to put it into practice. And that's what you find in the educational system. They give you a book and they think everything is this cookie cutter process, and that's not correct. I mean, children learn in different ways, and they have to see you in action, and they have to see the integrity. They have to see how things are done. So chastising them and you haven't shown them what to do, that's not education, so and then the belief comes through doing, the more you do this and then you live and you see the people outside. You think about these children here when they go outside and they are introduced to other children. Can you imagine what goes through their mind? I can imagine when they come back and they tell you, oh my goodness, mommy, those children act crazy. You know, People think because I put my child in these little special programs sometimes that that's going to necessarily educate them. We should be concerned. We should want them to be involved, but we should be very careful about what we put our children in to make sure that it really lines up with our values. because sometimes the things that we're putting our children in, I mean, today, you got sororities, fraternities, all of these things that people think will make you a better person. But we find out that that's not always true. So it comes by doing, and I really do believe the things that I've seen, as Brother Wally said, I've cried several times. I don't know how many times I have to tell you that, but it's the truth because you saw education in action. It wasn't just a book, it was by doing, and then it was reinforced by teachers and parents who were involved. And I saw 4 hours versus 8 hours. And I saw you can do more in 4 hours. And a lot of that is based on education and on hand practice, whatever it was that you're teaching.
Yes, ma'am. And for those who may not know, we have you're talking about the University of Islam, which we don't have a full 8 hour day, but we pack so much into these few hours, and the result is miraculous. Mhm. You have another question?
Can I say something besides answering the question?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I came to Camden when I was 15 years old from Arkansas. I heard the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when I was a professional gambler. The brothers used to go, and I should load the dice, bad dice, all that. You couldn't win. But my sister, my brother-in-law was selling whiskey on Sundays, and they got caught. I took the rap. I heard about this little man, Elijah Muhammad. I took the rap, but when I went to Trenton State Prison, they gave me a 1-3. I did 2 years and 18 days. When I got there, they told me that I had to work 25 cents a day. Elijah Muhammad didn't teach me that. I didn't learn that. But I learned all my lessons and everything. I'm going to make it kind of short. I made all my lessons and everything. When I came back here to Camden, I went into the master, brother of Minister George was teaching. Right away, he made me his assistant minister. I started teaching. But I learned one thing in Islam. You got to learn a trade, and you got to learn how to read and write. Many of our people don't do that. If you don't learn the trade, you don't learn nothing. You don't make no money. I learned the trade: carpenter, welder, public speaker, and all of this. In Camden, I went into Bordentown prison after I got out and told them I want to teach. They paid me $10 an hour for 2 hours. When the brothers got out on parole, they wanted parole, they sent to Camden from the prison. My brother and I, whose name is Brother X, he was in the union, and I was running a business. I had set up 4 businesses in Camden. All of them was the brothers' businesses. And he was in the union. We put a lot of the brothers in the union. We got out of jail. And we stopped the crime in different places in Camden. On King Avenue, they called it the Strip. We cleaned it up. I had a police officer came into my gift shop and told me, "Can I speak to you?" I said, "Yes, sir. We want you guys to stop stopping the drugs from coming into Camden." That's what Elijah do for you. We stopped the drugs from coming into Camden for 6 months, but the cops didn't like it. I had an officer come to me and say, "Listen, I want you to help me. Some of the guys selling what's the paper in Camden? The Camden paper, Courier Post. They was getting robbed. So he said, "Can you stop it?" I said, "Yeah, I can stop it. But only one thing, you got to give our men some jobs, you know." And I think the only Elijah Muhammad, I'm a fruit. I'm a FOI. I tell you that right now. I'm a FOI, and I'm like a Comic Con. And I would do anything for the teaching of Elijah Muhammad. He saved my life. And I taught. I went into prison. I taught. I went to Trenton. I taught everywhere. and I taught under brothers and ministers. And I say to you and to you, I'm FOI. A lot of things that I did, I can't talk about it. Something happened to some sisters in the mosque. Somebody touched them, did something wrong to them. We did something to them. That's what I'm a part of. And I'll never be nothing else. And I say one more thing, and I'm going to let it go. By hearing the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I hear people say certain things, have their problem, but I'm so glad money ain't one of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, Thank you both again for your time here today and speaking with us and our audience. We know Founders Day is coming up. Is there anything you would like to say or in closing or share that you did not have the opportunity so far?
Well, we are going to have our 38th annual Founders Day event, March 9th, 2025. That is from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And if people are in the Chicago area, we would hope that they would come out and join us. The tickets are $150. You know, we are dealing with inflation. But also, if you can't make it, you can drop us a donation. And I want to invite people to come out and visit Crow. As Brother Wally said, he's there with us. That's his home. This is his home as well. And we are thankful that, you know, we have people still around that want to share this message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So, like I said, come out to the temple here if you're in Camden, and if you're in Chicago, come and visit us at Crow, 2435 West 71st Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60629. And that phone number is 773-925-1600. Website, croe.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. Thank you all for watching. We're going to take a break and assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
God come to destroy unrighteousness and to set up righteousness. We have been lost from our home for now a little over 400 years. We are now trying to find the way home. But when we read the history of our forefathers coming into America, well, not say coming into America, they never would have been here if it had been left to them. Since they was brought here by force of those who wish to commercialize on their labor. That's right. Why not you tell them, I was not here until you brought me here. That's right. Now, if I am a burden to you, why not take me back where I came from?
We find the history of the Nation of Islam coming only a generation after the emancipation of enslaved blacks in America. In spite of so-called freedom, Southern blacks were greatly relegated to sharecropping, which in many respects is slavery by another name. Elijah Muhammad, named Elijah Poole at birth, was born in October of 1897 in Sandersville, Georgia. Since black births were not recorded in the vital records, he did not have a certificate of his actual birth date. He only knew he was born in October. Elijah was born to sharecropping parents, and his grandparents were themselves former slaves. As it was common for the time, he left school in what would have been considered early elementary so that he could support the family, working in the fields. In his early adulthood, he married Clara Evans, and like many blacks, they migrated to Detroit, fleeing the South for better opportunities. This journey from the South to the West, Midwest, and Northern U.S. is known as the Great Northern Migration. Unfortunately, instead of finding better opportunities, the Great Depression of the 30s sidetracked industry and employment. While white men found themselves in the unemployment and bread lines, blacks were in despair and extreme poverty, amplified severely by prejudice and racism. It was at this time, at the height of desperation and anguish, that Elijah Poole met a curious stranger, Master W.F. Muhammad, who founded the Nation of Islam in 1930. He was teaching blacks in Detroit the history of their people and that their true way of life is Islam, which means peace. He taught them that they were mentally and morally dead after the horrors of American slavery had stripped them of their identity, self-love, and self-respect. He taught them that self-reliance, not dependency on white America, was the answer to their problems, and he taught that the key to their success was unity. He taught that blacks did not have a true knowledge of themselves or others, and that the hiding of this truth is what kept them in a cage of ignorance. Whereas groups like the NAACP promoted integration, the teachings of Master Fard Muhammad promoted separation, and paramount was the doctrine of do for self. Elijah accepted this teaching after his meeting Master Fard Muhammad in 1931 and became the chief minister. That year, he was taken aside and taught for 3 1/3 years, face to face, and as he said, he was given everything required to resurrect his people from mental death and free them from dependency and the illness of self-hatred. He was given the name Elijah Kareem and later Elijah Muhammad by Master Fard Muhammad, who subsequently disappeared mysteriously. The federal government immediately commenced to harassing the Muslims, intimidating visitors to the Muslim meetings, and infiltrating the mosque with agents and implants. Despite the persecution by the FBI and local authorities, the teachings shared by Elijah Muhammad began taking root in the black community. Pride and dignity and a desire to be independent of the shackles of dependency and want spread through America. A people who called themselves Negro and colored began calling themselves black. They began loving their blackness as a virtue, wherein once it was deemed a curse. The Muslims became popular among their people and demonstrated how, through unity, love, and self-reliance, we can be restored from ignorance and neediness to discipline, respect, and self-sufficiency. The black community saw the Muslims as producers, and under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they witnessed an explosion of industry and commerce. Examples include the food markets, such as your supermarket, Guarantee Bank and Trust, the Muhammad Speaks newspaper and printing press, restaurants, clothiers, farms, and many other industries. The teachings changed the condition of black people. Of the many accomplishments of the Nation of Islam, the educational institution, the University of Islam, was among the finest. The first principal was his wife, Sister Clara Muhammad, and despite imprisonment and persecution for educating Muslim children in Muslim schools, the believers of the Nation of Islam persisted, and the educational system blossomed to over 40 schools throughout the nation. In no time, Messenger Elijah Muhammad was submitting ads in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, searching for teachers to meet the needs of a growing school system. Prestigious journalists from the U.S., Japan, China, and other nations sought interviews with Messenger Elijah Muhammad to learn more about his work with black people in America. Prominent black leaders were attracted and inspired by the teachings, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. visited with the messenger on several occasions. Others who were inspired included black entertainers and athletes. Muhammad Ali, formerly Cassius Clay, accepted Islam as taught by the messenger. He was one of the many of the messenger's prolific ministers, and his popularity as a successful boxer was enhanced when he gained a knowledge of himself and his people. He was both hated and loved for his acceptance of Islam and ridding himself of the name Cassius Clay, a slave name.
What was he going to say? No, I was going to say that the next day, Ali, when everybody was saying the stereotype thing. Here's a refreshing young man. We
Good
found
boy.
out you were a Muslim, and people got scared.
I got bad all of a sudden, yeah.
People got scared,
I
and
don't
you got
know.
bad all of a sudden, right, overnight.
I was a good boy when I was hollering, I am the greatest. I cannot be beat. I am pretty. I'm the king. He. I was a good boy. But when I said I'm a Muslim, my religion is Islam. What's wrong with that? You have 600 million Muslims on earth, and Muslim only mean one who submits entirely to the will of God, Allah, and Islam only means peace, entire submission to God, and we don't believe in forcing ourselves on
Do you hate
white
the
people.
whites?
No, sir, we don't hate
Why
whites.
has that grown up, do you suppose, that the
No,
Muslims
this is
are a
false
hate white
propaganda
group?
to scare Negroes, to keep them from coming, because Negroes by nature love their enemy. They pray for those who use them. Negroes by nature don't hate nobody. And so if they can make people think that we're a hate group, that'll frighten them. But we don't hate white people. We know white people. We know the history.
Muhammad Ali inspired millions of black men and boys throughout the nation, and among them was a young Donnie Walker from Camden, New Jersey, renamed Wasim by his Aunt Mecca, who was the first Muslim convert in his family. Wasim was captivated by Islam as a child and began studying the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad while studying at the University of New Mexico. Upon graduation in 1990, he returned to his hometown of Camden and soon fell under the leadership of the local minister, assisting him in reintroducing the messenger to the people after his name and teachings were buried by the federal government, disbelievers, and hypocrites. It was not until 2008 that he was selected to lead the charge as brother minister and present the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to the community. His closest advisors were Brother James X, his first captain, Brother Charles X, Brother Abu Bakr, and Brother Matt, all who accepted Islam in the 1950s. Brother Minister Wasim Muhammad also became acquainted with the founders of CROW, the Coalition for Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Brother Munir Muhammad, Brother Halif Muhammad, and Brother Shahid Muslim. The convergence of their paths was instrumental, as CROW is the national archives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Nation of Islam. With CROW Media, they continue being the voice of the messenger through radio and television. With this support in place, Brother Minister Wasim Muhammad reestablished Muhammad's Temple number 20 at 1157 Haddon Avenue and began broadcasting on Muhammad Speaks Radio every Tuesday evening. Just as important, the University of Islam was reestablished in 2011. And as of 2025, 14 students have graduated, ready for college, career, or family. Our students were given the great opportunity to meet with the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Minister Louis Farrakhan, who later appeared as a guest on Muhammad Speaks Radio and endorsed the efforts of Muhammad's Temple number 20. For Brother Minister Wasim Muhammad, the work has not remained within the walls of Muhammad's Temple number 20. Brother Minister has worked in partnership with local leaders to improve public safety, reduce youth violence, and overall make our community a safe place to live. Muhammad's Temple is not only where the teachings of the messenger are shared with our people, but also where the community can meet to address concerns impacting their neighborhoods and families. Brother Minister is helping others find their voice and identity in the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It is the knowledge and truth about ourselves and what we must do in this time that we need. The messenger's teachings, given to him directly from Master Farad Muhammad, is the reconnection to our original identity prior to our traumatic years of deprivation. Muhammad's Temple number 20 and the work we do in the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad intends to be an encouragement and strengthening to others of our people seeking a true salvation and heaven here on earth.
Welcome back to our live and our audience watching on social media. Again, I am your sister, Dr. Nicole Muhammad, member of Muhammad's Temple of Islam number 20 here in Camden, New Jersey. We are here wrapping up our wonderful Savior's Day weekend 2025. Here at Muhammad's Temple, we are under the administration of our brother minister, Wasim Muhammad, who has been administrating the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We have him here as well as our brother Jamil Muhammad, hailing all the way from Chicago, member of Crow, and also son of one of the founders of Crow, brother Munir Muhammad, along with the other co-founders, Halif Muhammad and brother Shahid Muslim. So we're thankful to have you both here. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sister. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, we are here ending our Savior's Day weekend. Brother Minister, I know you had some surprises this weekend that caught you off guard. And Brother Jamil, we're so happy to have you here for Savior's Day. Whoever would like to open, if you would just talk about how your experience has been in this past weekend.
And if I may, because I want you
Yes,
to
sir.
get to Brother Jamil, he's our guest here, but I want to open up in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is his true servant and last apostle. As I greet our audience, our listening audience, in the greetings of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
I want to first thank the members of Crow who are here as our guests for Savior's Day weekend. Brother Jamil, of course, sitting on the panel with me, Sister Kim Muhammad, and of course, Brother Captain Wali Bahar. I want to thank them for being here, the verifier and the history, to be here to document the humble work that we're doing here in the city of Camden. But I also want to acknowledge to one of my mentors, of course, you already know, was Brother Munir Muhammad of Crow. That brother, when I met him in my life, his impact was strong on me. It helped me to hone in on my skills and my skill set as a Muslim and follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and how to navigate through all of this. But I had mentors prior to that, which one of them are here today in the audience, Brother Charles X, who is the brother of Brother James X, whom we lost unfortunately this past year, and who was very close to me. And he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. And I also just want to take this moment. I just got the news today that my minister, Brother Minister Robert Muhammad, who trained me in the ministry as a young follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when I graduated college, we just learned of his passing. So I want to send my condolences to his family and the great work that and the great impact that he made here in the Delaware Valley, really up and down New Jersey, out of Newark and Plainfield. His brother as well, Brother Keith Muhammad, who Brother Munir, Brother Jamil, y'all met in Chicago, another one of my mentors in the ministry. But we lost Brother Rob, unfortunately, but he was a man's man and a teacher of men. I just want to open up and say that, but you can take it from here, Brother Jamil.
Yes, sir, brother. Thank you. And sister, of course, is wonderful to be here in Camden again. I believe this is my third year. And to rejuvenate and be inspired by what we see here. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say that having our sister Kim here for the first time took me back to my first time. And when you see the community and be a part of it, it reminds us of, and I've shared this with Brother Minister Wasim, the experiences that we had as children growing up in the Nation of Islam and what we've read of the times of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's such a beautiful thing to see, and it bears witness uh, to what the teachings can do when applied. this is a way of life that you all have here that's, as we say, a validation that that blueprint works. And it's always special to be here to bear witness to that.
Um, well, we know it's a pleasure to have you. When you're in this work, it can be a lonely work because the believers, the followers are not many. So we are just forever indebted and grateful for that encounter that our brother minister had with your father, Brother Munir Muhammad. And for those who haven't heard, Brother Minister, would you share a little bit about how that connection came with our
Oh,
brother Munir
yes.
Muhammad?
Well, I want to start from
Mhm.
the very beginning for those who don't know how I came into the ministry. As I was listening earlier to Sister Kim talking about I'm just a helper, and in other words, she was saying I didn't need a title, but for myself, I was selected by a group of men in following the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that when he said to us in Message to the Black Man, when you have a group of you all and someone has knowledge in something, I think he referenced the grocery store, that two or three you should come together, put the grocery store together, and keep going. So the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at that time in Camden was going through somewhat of a transition here. And so it was a group of men who gave me the title as brother minister, as we was going to do this work again of getting back on our posts as we took a little hiatus after being a part of the national organization. And we wanted to come up with on this organ. We wanted to come back together again. We didn't see what we thought was the representation of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad here locally. We didn't see the leadership that we wanted to, and we wanted to make sure that we wasn't being rebellious or trying to be of those who started a mosque, as the Holy Quran teaches us, not out of rebellion or, and not out of, with ill heart. But as we thought about it, we were, I was, and maybe one other brother was a part of the brothers who started the journey of opening and reopening Temple or Mosque number 20 here in Camden. It was four of us at the time. The brother who we just lost, Brother Robert Muhammad, and Brother James X, who we just lost a year ago, myself, and my best friend at the time. So we was of the four who started this movement right here at this very building that we're in now. So we begin the journey of doing the work of the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad by impacting our community. Brother Rob was already being impacted. He was a barber, as the trade skill that Brother Charles talked about. He was a barber training other barbers. He had to trade one of the first black barber shops in this Whitman Park section of Camden. And he's impacted a lot of us young brothers. I was in high school when I first met him, but when we started teaching us, I was in college. So I thought to myself, well, I can't be in rebellion because we were a part of the decision making as I was under training of Brother Rob, as I stated earlier in my ministry, as assistant minister and his secretary. We were then a part of the national organization under our Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan, but it was during transition time of what was going on here locally in Camden and nationally. So we decided to shut our doors. And when we shut the doors, we always knew that we were going to open back up again. We just thought strategically that was the thing to do at the time, as the brother was telling us that if you can't see no light, stand still. So we stood still, taking that first interpretation of that part of the Holy Quran. And then after standing still, we decided to get back as a community. And I didn't know at the time, if you would have told me that I was going to be in the ministry, I always thought that I was going to be a great helper. I wanted to help where it was necessary. I'm a servant leader. I like to serve people. What can I do? I'm a point guard at heart, talking about my basketball skills and what got me to the dance to get educated free and to be known in this area as a basketball player. So I just wanted to help out, get in where I fit in. So at the time, I was chosen because our brother Rob at the time, felt as though he didn't want to get back in the ministry, and he was the kind of brother, if he couldn't give it 1,000%, and he wasn't 1,000% in and clear, he didn't want to do it, and we respected that. That's what I respected most about the brother, because some people get into leadership because they want to be seen of men. Some people get into leadership because they're not ready. He was already leading us, but he, at the time, didn't want to come back in. So the community looked at me, and I didn't think I was qualified for that particular job. I knew leadership because I was in local businesses. I educated a little bit. I had several businesses. Brother Rob and I were business partners in some of our business ventures. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to do it at 1,000%. And that's the kind of young man that I was raised, the men I was around, the men that trained me, my father that raised me to be that kind of man. Make your word bond. Do what you say you're going to do. Finish it out. Don't quit in the middle of all of these things. He instilled in me that you see, in to not to make a long story longer, that you see in the tenacity that I've picked up over the years. It just don't come right away as the training, as Brother Jamil and I talked about, and that's how we got here in the ministry, working in the ministry here in the city of
Um, and if you could touch on your briefly on your encounter with Brother Munir.
Camden. Brother Manir, okay, that's
Yes,
how
sir.
we got there. We almost got there. So when I did that, as I was going and study and seeing other leaders, and social media was just becoming popular at the time. I believe it was about maybe 15 or 16 years ago. And social media was beginning to become popular, YouTube. So as I was studying and going back to study the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad again and refresh my mind because I took it seriously getting into the ministry, I ran across Crow TV, Crow Media, and I ran across this brother, Brother Manir, and he kind of, his forthrightness, his being a man's man, his fortitude in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings, and everything impacted me about him. So I gave him a call. He said, "Call this number," and I picked up the phone, and we had a great conversation. And if you knew Brother Manir was just listening, and he was paying attention, and he wasn't paying attention. So we exchanged numbers. We talked on the phone for about 15, 20 minutes, and and that was it. So I get a phone call about maybe 2 months later from Brother Manir, and the first encounter. And if you knew Brother Manir, he had the personality. It don't matter where or whom he met, he made you feel comfortable with who it is, and it's like he knew you a lifetime. I call it that Southern hospitality that he got from growing, being raised in Alabama. And he was like, brother, salam alaikum. He's like, brother, I'm trying to get to Philly. I'm in South Jersey somewhere. Can you tell me where I'm on 295? And ironically, it was the very first day that we reopened and decide to do this work again, that we decided to come back together as a group. So right in the middle of us, right before our meeting, we went, and a couple brothers went and guided them as we was going to guide them to Philly, because it was hard to tell him over the phone. We brought him to where we were at, and at the time we were meeting at the child care center down the street because we didn't yet come back and regroup this building, and we were at the child care center meeting in that classroom, a little small classroom. We was going to use the space that we had to organize people and get people minds right, reorient our thinking, and then that was the beginning. And as Brother Manir said, we treated them as Muslims. We went over in Philadelphia. It was me and another brother, as not having our win. And if you know anything about this work and walking with Brother Manir, I mean, we were winded. We were out of wind. We haven't soldiered like that, as we would say in the Nation of Islam, or worked like that. And we were down for 8 years. We hadn't worked like that in 8 years, that where we could go a whole day, as we would say, working for Muhammad, and which really is working for ourselves. And we went a whole day, and that was the beginning of our relationship. And I had the wonderful privilege for almost those 12 years of my relationship with Brother Munir to, if I didn't speak to him every day, I spoke with him every other day.
It's a wonderful, wonderful story, and how you become connected through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There's no other. There's nothing like the sisterhood and the brotherhood of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So that connection that just happened, it was that love is there. The messenger brings that for us, and the genuineness. You know, meeting Brother Munir. I mean, I remember I was here at that time, and just how committed he was to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And as I see it with you, Brother Minister, just the relentless dedication to the teachings. And with Crow, only the words of the messenger, because we're in a time where other people are adding things or taking things away, and we're just sticking solely to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I just want to correct one thing. I said a little while ago that we can sometimes it can be lonely, and I don't mean it to say that we are yearning or looking for people to just be here or to believe. No, we want this for all of our people because it is so wonderful. It is life saving, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it's quality over quantity. We're not interested, none of us are interested in quantity. We've seen what that can produce when you have no quality or substance or character. So Allah is sufficient. We know that. Um,
And I think
Brother,
when you say
you
that,
know,
sister, we understand the loneliness part, because everyone doesn't understand, and we know that it's a long journey. And when I hear that story and think of my father, we have to go back to Crow because it's rooted in the defense of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, a man who was omitted out of history for the most part. And so when you set up that foundation to defend the very thing that gives you purpose in your life, you're looking around for that. And it was out of that that foundation was built. And so when brother, I'm sure in that conversation, you said my father was paying attention and not paying attention because you're used to having calls, but you don't know what it's going to be like. And when he got here in the way you all, that engagement 2 months later, something that might not have seemed significant at the time was the validation that, okay, they're serious as far as this brotherhood goes and sisterhood. And that's how it built. And so you never know the road that this is going to take, but it's so beautiful because you see the inspiration, the passion, and the authenticity that my father had. And so it's not everyone's cup of tea to be able to digest that. But when you look at that truth, that passion, it's well, we say this all the time. He's one of the few people who his will was strong enough to will you into something. And that's such a rare, rare quality. And we're still seeing the evidence of that today. And it's such a beautiful thing. But that was brought about by the love, his love of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
and I love that you two both talked about that history, and you even talked, before we started about um, just being raised and knowing Islam, knowing the truth, um, and you, brother minister, how you came to know it later on, um, as taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That is, um, but if you,
You know, as you
mhm,
say that,
mhm,
sister, and Brother Minister Wasim and I shared this experience, and we talk about this. When you're raised in Islam, and this was brought about by hearing Sister Kim and so many others, talk about how they were searching for something, searching for the truth. And for me, when I've always heard those stories, I never had to put something down to pick this up and discover it. To have the truth and not have to wonder about mysteries or anything like that, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around what that's like, because when you have this, everything else is inferior as far as other things. You learn to understand it based on how to communicate with your people, but it's such a blessing to have the truth your entire life. And it's something that we can't take for granted. And so when we come here and we see these young people who are blessed in that regard, it saves them so much time. You all talked about the 4 hours that you put in versus the 8, but a lot of that isn't around the fluff or the falsehoods that they have to deal with everywhere else. And it's such a beautiful thing. And people think of what our young people can't do, or they can't play, they can't do this. But you have athletes,
Right.
you have people, you can do whatever you want with this teachings. And it's something that not only I heard my entire life, but I was able to bear witness to it.
Yes, all praises due to Allah. Along those same lines, Brother Jamil, in having that all your life, um, when you're young, you go where your parents tell you. You do what your parents tell you to do. If it's Sunday, or whether it's temple, mosque, you're going, right? Um, but there's a point, right, where it becomes belief, and then it becomes knowing
Yes.
that I know that this is the messenger. I know we're here Savior's Day week, that this man is Allah in the
Yes.
person Master Farad Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you talk about that?
Absolutely. And it's so wonderful you brought this up, because last year I was telling the young brothers this. You grow up in something and it's your environment. You believe it, it's not tested. You know, we hear it, we see the evidence of everybody else. But there comes a time when you have to defend what you believe in. Because when you grow up in these teachings, and I was usually the only one who didn't celebrate a holiday, believed a certain kind of way. And so I went through answering the questions. But what would happen is I began to ask others questions about what they believe. And so you could defend all day, but sometimes like, wait a minute. And so you have to study and do things. But what I learned was that people will try to define you based on their perception. So you begin to test what you know, not only in speaking it, but you embrace being different. See, some people don't like that attention. But when you're in a classroom, I don't care if it's a job interview, anything, when you have the name Muhammad, you're going to have attention. And you have to live up to that. And so when I understood that and I began to test what I believe in the world and saw the benefit of it, I was telling Brother Minister Wasim, the proper way of handling people was so instrumental to me, because you learn how to deal with people, whether it's in leadership and engagement, based on that. And that's when you learn it's the way of life. And so for me, it was one of those things as a teenager. Now, we all have our opportunities for growth, right? But when you are out there speaking and applying the things that you believe, and you realize that other people just have to shut their mouths at it, it gives you the confidence to keep going. And Sister earlier talked about belief, but if you only believe it in your mind, but you never tested to verify the reality of it, what it can produce for you, then you'll be stuck there. You're not taking it to its full capabilities. And we all have to do that for ourselves. And I think that those victories bring about that confidence. And what's better for us, and Brother Minister Wasim bears witness to this, even if you lose a little battle, you can't run and hide forever. You study. identify what you could have done better, and you get back out there to test it so you can be prepared for the next one.
Yes, I think that's a wonderful time to take a break here. Thank you for that. We're going to take a break and be back in a few moments.
Join us, the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to celebrate our 38th annual Founders Day on Sunday, March 9th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. as we embark on our 38th year as the archives of the Nation of Islam. As we continue our commitment of sharing the life and legacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, your support ensures that we continue building this institution of higher learning. We look forward to seeing you Sunday, March 9th at Crow. Call 773-925-1600 for details.
Okay, and we're back. Um, Brother Minister, I think this is a good time for those of us who may not have heard more specifics about your story. Some of us have heard who have listened to the radio show, and I know that Islam was a part of your life early on, but it was later, a little later on, that you were
Correct.
deeply exposed to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for going back there to, to build the foundation of how we got here. Yes, I come up in Islam and basically during the transition years. In 1975, I was 8 years old when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad departed. And the books of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were banned in the mosque as when we were children. So it was my early teenage years, or coming into my teenage years, we were following then the Imam Wafiddin Muhammad, who took the Nation of Islam in a different direction. So I really stood strong on that and grabbed the hold to Islam at a very early age. And as you all know, and those who view us on Muhammad Speaks Radio, at 13 years old, I knew, as you answered that question to Brother Jamil, about we don't inherit this from our parents. Of course, we were raised in the manner of being a Muslim or a Christian or wherever our parents take us to. But at one point, you have to test it yourself. You have to be yourself. At 13 years old, I knew then that Islam was my religion, and even though it was under the Imam, things made sense to me, and it was just natural. And my mother had went back to the church, and my father had believed in nothing. You couldn't come to him with anything that wasn't reality. And if it wasn't no reality in it, it couldn't change his life right there, and he couldn't use it right there and then you couldn't have a conversation with him. And I never knew where that conversation was coming from. So I journeyed, and I ran into Brother Rob at the barbershop when I was a high school basketball player. Great, good friend of mine took me by his barbershop and said, said, hey, this is my brother here. Who do y'all follow? And he said to my brother, who do y'all follow? He said the Imam. And boy, he got the whooping on a history. And that history again, that word history, that we didn't have growing up in the mosque or temple, because that history was kind of put in the background about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. They just told us that that was the old way. And no, not knowing the history, that what we consider the Sunnah or Orthodox Islam is the older way. You know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought us a new Islam, but that's the language that the brothers in the mosque used at the time. And so, I went on playing basketball, and you know, went on to University of New Mexico on a basketball scholarship. And my best friend, who we come up in Islam together, became closer to Brother Rob. And Brother Rob kept teaching him, but I wasn't here. I was living in the West Coast, and I came home and visited. All my friends was like, and everybody we grew up in the mosque with was whispering, the brother is, following the old way, the Nation of Islam. So the brother kind of avoided me the whole time. I was home for a couple of days just to visit, to get in, come in, and come out. So the brother came and dropped a little tape on me, and the tape was a tape of Minister Louis Farrakhan. He said, "Brother, 2 o'clock in the morning, I was going to get to go to the airport in Philly at 4 o'clock in the morning. He came to the house, to my parents' house at 2 o'clock in the morning. Said, "Hey, brother, just take this tape." I hadn't seen him the whole 2 or 3 days, and we come up together. Brother used to walk me to kindergarten. That's how far we go back, literally to kindergarten. He was in the second grade. I was in the kindergarten. He used to have to walk me to school, to the elementary school we went to. So, I come home. He didn't visit me. That was kind of odd. But he gave me the tape, and I listened to that tape of Minister Louis Farrakhan, who was, one of the best at articulating the messenger's teachings. And this was in the 80s. And so I went back, and, just that seed was in me, you know. So he came and visited me out there in Albuquerque. And when he came to visit me, he had a message to the black man in his hand. And I said, "What you got there?" And he stayed with me. He was supposed to stay and visit me for about a week. He ended up staying a month. And we didn't wrangle too much, but how can you read message to the black man, especially since it was banned and we never had it? And you can understand why they banned the book in the very mosque and temple where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had built for so many years. The books were banned there. And after the going back and forth with me and the brother, I had understood before he left that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was, in fact, the last messenger of Allah. And from that time on, I think it was my junior year in college. After I graduated, I moved back here to Camden with my family. And it got a hold more of Brother Rob and Brother James X, and we all decided to do this work in 91 or 92. I can't remember the year. And we started this work, the four of us. And then 2000, pardon me, not 2000, we closed the doors as I put in the great words of our brother, Minister Louis Farrakhan, who had the opportunity to sit down with, as he calls it, a misunderstanding, as he was giving that story. And because we, in doing this work again, when I became the administrator here at the temple, I wanted to make sure from those who were doing the work, um, I wouldn't say their blessing. And you can say their blessing, but I wanted to make sure, because of the history here in Camden, that we were not the ones that's going to open up a mosque in rebellion. And knowing the history, we weren't the rebellious ones. Were the ones who started it, but yet had a misunderstanding and decided to get back to work now. And mind you, had we had seen the work being done, we would have fell in and doing the work. And that's the words we say today with anybody whom we come across to. I can bow to something greater than I. I can bow to work greater than myself. I can bow to someone who's more intelligent, because the only way you're going to be great or greater is to be in a room with other people who's like you, and I think I have demonstrated that. And that's just where I get it from.
Thank you. You both have comparable experiences. Pro in Chicago, Temple Number 20 here in Camden. We're staunch on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Only his teachings, only his word. Um, Could you speak to a bit of, we see that there are sometimes some changes or people um, saying that there is some additional information, additional understanding, um, but why we are so committed to solely the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Sister, I'm so glad you asked that question because the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a plain warner. He gave it to you straight. It wasn't poetic or mysterious. It's so direct and simple, people underestimate it. People have used the excuse of reinterpreting it so people can understand it, updating it with modern language or whatever to make it more palatable, um, the grammar, whatever. But the slightest deviation can take our people off course. And so the messenger of God, 44 years, he worked on behalf of our people. The only man who raised a nation within a nation the results of his works are unparalleled. And so if it worked, why change it? And so when people take bits and pieces of his program and then they begin to attribute things to it that wasn't him, then we understand the dangers of that. And so by using only his words, it's the safest thing for all of his followers because you won't be charged with deviating or putting yourself in front of. The messenger said, "You teach the people of me, and I'll teach them of God." And so we do that by following his blueprint because that's what makes us most careful in our duty. And so you're dealing with the lives of our people. See, this is the reality of life and death. And so it's something that is sacred and it's something that shouldn't be played with or tainted. And that's really the seriousness behind this.
Yes, and Brother Jamil said a lot, and I can't really come behind that, but I can say that that foundation of using only the messenger's words is the foundation that all of us need. You know, everything evolves, but it got to have to evolve from a foundation of mathematics, of principles. And we know, as Brother Jamil spoke about, those 44 years of the life and journey of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is our foundation. And if you try to build a house, as the messenger teaches us, on a foundation that is not built on mathematics, that's the first thing a builder does. He tests the foundation. And if the foundation isn't strong, then the house will blow apart. I mean, will blow away easier. But if the foundation of the house is strong, and if you see someone put a building together, they set the foundation there, they test it first, and then they build the house on it. So if the house can fall, the foundation is good. You can come back again. You can do this again. You can function again. And that's why the foundation is so important. That's what make Crow, the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the archive so relevant, the remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because as we seen, as I seen as a very early preteen, when the remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wasn't there, you know, I had Islam, but I didn't get the foundation what was given to us, you know, for you and I. And I think what I had was applicable, but if I, you know, if it's like having something, like if you, as we like to say, and if you're very sick with a terminal illness such as cancer, you can take medication, but you're gonna need something stronger than aspirin. Aspirin is for a headache. You know, when you got something as a terminal illness, then you need some radiation or something that's stronger as medicine to get you back, get your body back normal. And I give that analogy based on the teachings of Islam and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's the foundation of what was given to us by Messenger Elijah Muhammad through that 44-year period, that you can have Islam. because the principles never change. You can have it. You know, it's all kind of Muslims on this world. There's Muslims in Russia, Muslims in the East, in Africa, in Australia, there's Muslims everywhere. But that foundation, what was given to us, is what made the work so very, I would say, peculiar, particular just for us here in America, that impacted the whole world, just as we see as hip hop, R&B, jazz, right here in America has impacted the world. Why not Islam in the way it was given to us, popularized by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
And sister, let me add to that too. You know, when you talk about the importance of it, and brother said this earlier, right? And so just think the books were banned. So it wasn't just an introduction to what they define as a new Islam. But think about Message to the Black Man is arguably the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's most popular and universally read book that he authored. What if it stayed banned? What if people were never affected by that after 1977? And so when you think about the significance of that, and then to have an organization and people to preserve that and become the vanguard for the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad so that that can never happen again, you understand the magnitude of this work, because the messenger created a nation within a nation, talked about a way of life. And so Message to the Black Man, and we had our own messenger from our shared experience to come and give a message to us. And so the Islam that you talk about, it's like, yes, the principles are the same, but they wanted to wear and take on something that was for another people. This Islam is taught by the messenger, was fashioned for us, and that's why it's a badge of honor to protect that and preserve it for our people so that that prophecy can finally be fulfilled.
And just showing the magnitude of, we talked earlier as well that we were not even around when the messenger was present.
Yes.
And the love that we have, the importance it is in our lives. It is life, Islam. And who else had that ability to do that? Who else is inspiring people to action, not just to words? So at this time, we're going to take another quick break.
God come to destroy unrighteousness. That's right. And to set up righteousness. We have been lost from our home for now a little over 400 years. We are now trying to find the way home. Yes, sir. But when we read the history of our forefathers coming into America, well, not say coming into America, they never would have been here if it had been left to them. Since they was brought here by force of those who wish to commercialize on their labor. That's right. Why not you tell them, I was not here until you brought me here. That's right. Now, if I am a burden to you, yeah, why not take me back where I came from?
We find the history of the Nation of Islam coming only a generation after the emancipation of enslaved blacks in America. In spite of so-called freedom, Southern blacks were greatly relegated to sharecropping, which in many respects is slavery by another name. Elijah Muhammad, named Elijah Poole at birth, was born in October of 1897 in Sandersville, Georgia. Since black births were not recorded in the vital records, he did not have a certificate of his actual birth date. He only knew he was born in October. Elijah was born to sharecropping parents, and his grandparents were themselves former slaves. As it was common for
case. Um, but just thinking what was so significant about this book, or what was so terrible about this book, or the books of the messenger. This was not a man teaching hate, violence. He was 100%, as he said, for us, wanting us to love ourselves, and was strictly for us, teaching us truth. So for people, our enemies, not to want us to know this information that was not in any way um, violent, aggressive, of any kind. We have to, think and open our minds why some certain things like that would take place. Um, Brother Minister, I would like to get back to just your work here in the local Camden community, the Delaware Valley. Um, we have seen that sometimes ministers may be focused on um, abroad, national, um, social media, but you have seemed to focus specifically and have a direct focus on the local community and building that up and making an impact there. If you could talk about that decision, because it seemed very thoughtful.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you. And I everything that's we physically see in the universe has spiritual ramifications to it, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches. So everything I look at, so when you look at the sun, moon, and star, as the messenger taught us in his teachings, everything is relevant. If you can see it, if it exists, it has a spiritual component of it, with us being original people. So when I look at the messenger's program, the military side of it, the militancy that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put us in, the training that he give us as FOI and MGT, the drilling, all of those things that are necessary, that makes me think as we about our military. Now, of course, we're not going to be like the military that go and aggress people, because that's against Islam. And what makes America one of the greatest countries in this modern time is its discipline of its military expertise. Of course, is bombing and war and warmongering, but the discipline and the fortitude of their military makes them top. And this is why America is the leader of this world. So if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put us in a military stance, then as spiritually, we have to look at it from the standpoint of why he gave us mosques and temples, put us in military mode. Because every minister in every town, whether it was Temple 1 in Detroit, Temple 2 in Chicago, Temple 3 in Milwaukee, Temple 4 in Washington, D.C., Temple 5 in, what's that? It's Temple 5. I used to know these things by heart. But, you know, all of these numbers were, to me, military wise, is posts, is where you need post at. Is outposts to gather up the people for a central intelligence, for a central location, central commandment, for lack of better words. So as you see people today focusing on national leadership and that's great. However, where's the local post at? And that's why under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the history that I study of Messenger Elijah Muhammad's teachings, every minister in the town that they were in were popular and did the work and was known in that area. They couldn't hide behind social media like many of us hide behind today. Because social media can make you whatever you are and what you're not. Even though social media should be a tool to enhance what we do. But when we go in your town, we should see the work. We should see you holding down your post. So if I can't put my child on a school bus called an airplane and send them to Chicago or Detroit where there's a school at, and I don't have a school here. In person. So to me, in looking at that military version of this, the spiritual side, And as you heard the elders talk about it today, there was a physical side to our military, to of protection, you know. However, spiritually, we have to hold down where we at. We have to make it functional. Growing up as a child in Islam and gravitating later towards the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I saw the devastation of my peers, of those who come up with me, of not having a program and position to function in their area when all of the schools were lost. And we lost the farms and we lost everything that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had took 44 years to build. We lost all of that, and therefore we lost some of my peers, the children I grew up with, because we had nothing to give them. We had nothing to hand over to them. They couldn't see the physical side. As Brother Captain Wally Bahar said, that they separated, just gave us the religious part of it. And it's good. I'm not saying the religious part of the teachings are not necessary, and they are for humanity, but yet the physical have to be there. And as I looked at that and I looked around me then, in my study, I began to study as I got older, when we kind of went through a little short history of shutting the mosque down here in Camden in 2000. I began to look at my children and say, now, all this great wisdom, I'm raising them in the life-giving teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. What are we going to give them? Am I going to repeat this same history that I saw myself? And that's what motivated me, that and gravitate towards that wisdom of the great wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, setting up posts, temples all across America, as he set in Chicago and directed with his national leadership. Now, and that was being done, but we couldn't see it here. You know, people were trying and failing. They quitting on us. So like the old saying goes, if you don't see it being done, then you get up and you do it yourself. So we've been here on our posts for 15, 16 years now, trying to get it done. And I pray Allah and hope Allah, and I'm going to see to it as an Allah that we get this done. So when we hand it over to our children, to our youth, they don't have to start at ground zero. They can start at a point, whether it's 3 or 4 in mathematics, and keep the movement going. As we've seen the foundation of Crow with its co-founders, and us losing, unfortunately, a very charismatic and a powerful, impactful brother, Crow has shown us that we can keep it going. We can work on that foundation. Could you imagine, Brother Jamil, if y'all had to start from ground zero, but y'all was starting at a point where as though something was built and you didn't let it go again. You didn't let it go. Y'all didn't let it fall. Y'all didn't let it, dissipate into nothingness. Y'all kept it going. And now the foundation is there. Instead of y'all starting at zero, ground zero, y'all starting at a specific number, 4 or 5 or 6, whatever you want to take it as. And y'all can still build on and right up on to the modern times.
One thing that my father used to say that was paramount, in those years, he said, if we had to start all over today, he didn't think we could do it, with the timing. And even after his passing, you can't fill that void that he left. And so trying to navigate in the way of everyone stepping up and finding their niche to be a part of the continuation of it is a journey sometimes of self-discovery, maturity, and going beyond your comfort zone and bettering yourself to do other things, and then navigating that piece. And it's never easy to come together, but with the foundation there, that you don't have to start over, with the example, with the brotherhood, with the equity that's been built in, that it's attainable and failure isn't an option. And when you have that self-accusing spirit, that consciousness to move forward because you know it's something greater than yourself and you saw the great pains that's taken in there. It gives you that extra wind of perseverance. It gives you that purpose that extends beyond yourself. And whether it's the pictures on the wall, whether it's the tapes, we still have cassette tapes. Hard to play them unless you go back. But you see those incremental foundation blocks that now when you think back, like, man, we started from there and here. And it's a beautiful story. And then when you come here, sister, and realize that we were an inspirational source for you all here, and then you motivate us and reignite what not had become dormant, but you can't take it for granted. When you see it up, when you're in it up close, it's good to step back and be like, all praises due to Allah. And you continue with that journey because you asked earlier, 38 years, but the concept of ideas started that cycle when those schools were closed, when that transition was going. You heard Captain Bahar that my father said, how can you let this happen? But even from that moment, the thought, the idea, all of those things came into existence so we could do something to never, ever let it happen again.
Yes,
That's the
sir.
story of Grow.
Yes. And we do need one another, those who believe and know that encouragement to keep going, to know that there's so much purpose and meaning in life with this. Um, Brother Jamil, would you talk a bit about what you see as your purpose in this work and where you see yourself and Crow going in the future?
Sister, when we talk about this work and continuing it, my father was not a selfish person, right? And you learn to respect all of the components. And so, as Sister said, to be a helper, but it's to bring whatever skills you have to the operation. And so, a lot of the training, or whether it's in a political space, the community space, the government, uh, and just business inherently itself, if it's that organizational structure, if it's that discipline, or and to make sure that people understand that you could be whatever you want to be, but the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad allow you to do it better. And it's why we, in our newsletters, we talked about Volume 10 because we were nothing until that one came and stood behind us and made it tenfold. And so it's talking about the reality of that. We see so many of our brothers and sisters say they have ideas or things that they want to do and feel like they can't do it in this teachings. And we see they go off and pursue other things. But we want to show them, no, you can have this, and whatever you take hold of with the message's teachings, it'll make you better. And so to use those talents and skills to come back, if it's organization, if it's ideas as far as structure, processes, this work is big. And so it's to find your niche. Finding your niche sometimes is uncomfortable. It's difficult. Sometimes people go through their whole lives and never discover their gift. And so that journey and purpose for me is to not only help with this, but to bear witness because I know that through life's experience that it really is the difference between life and death. We have children, we have two generations at least that have come up through Crow. And so they have that foundation, but it's not the test or whatever. They may not be where they want to be, right? That journey, they might have hit a shortcoming. We've seen people go away out of embarrassment because they didn't achieve success. That self accusing spirit could be difficult. Some people run away from pressure, some people run to it. And so my father used to say, we want to be here 7 days a week, whatever. So whenever you come, someone will be here. And so that really is the purpose, to make sure not only that the doors are open, but we're here to bear witness, not only to receive our people, but to give them what we had that has sustained us.
We want to pass that on.
Yes.
All right, thank you. At this time, we're going to take another break and we'll be back in a few minutes.
I tracked industry and entered in the vital records. He did not have a certificate of his actual birth date. He only knew he was born in October. Elijah was born to sharecropping parents, and his grandparents were themselves former slaves. As it was common for the time, he left school in what would have been considered early elementary so that he could support the family working in the fields. In his early adulthood, he married Clara Evans, and like many blacks, they migrated to Detroit, fleeing the South for better opportunities. This journey from the South to the West, Midwest, and Northern U.S. is known as the Great Northern Migration. Hiding of this truth is what kept them in a cage of ignorance. Whereas groups like the NAACP promoted integration, the teachings of Master Farad Muhammad promoted separation, and paramount was the doctrine of do for self. Elijah accepted this teaching after his meeting Master Farad Muhammad in 1931 and became the chief minister. That year, he was taken aside and taught for 3 1/3 years, face to face, and as he said, he was given everything required to resurrect his people from mental death and free them from dependency and the illness of self-hatred. He was given the name Elijah Kareem.
All right, Brother Jamil and Brother Minister, I think you both also have in common very strong personalities of your fathers and experiences and things that you've learned from your fathers and the impact that it's made in your life. Um, Brother Jamil, though, I'd like to, if you could share a bit about being the son of Brother Munir Muhammad, um, who is someone whom you meet is like larger than life. His personality, his if you meet him, you hear about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When he enters, you know he is there, um, and some people can take that different ways. Being a child of someone who is such a strong person, a strong man, and you, brother minister, having such a um, just a big personality, big life, but Jamil, how that was for you, the maybe the challenges, but also the great things about being the son of a man like Brother Munir Muhammad.
You
Because
know,
we
it,
can't talk about Crow
oh
without
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
right. Interesting
Mhm.
enough, for me, it was always filled with teachable moments, right? And so you grow from that in tests, and it's almost like everything is a lesson. And it was beautiful because it didn't feel like it was just a way of life. I think when it really, for me, through my years of, it was the opinions of everyone else. I think whether it was relatives, because being Muslims, like, well, let that child do this. It was a chatter, but what I saw was the reality. I think being my father always never talked to us like children, and so I always talk about how I remember certain things. I remember the agony and the pain of when the school closed, right? And it was like, man, this nation within a nation, where am I going to send my child to go to school? And as a parent, you understand that now. See, what people don't see is the protective nature of driving not only me and picking me up to school every day, but my sister too, all of those things. The quotes of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, it was a picture up in almost every room of the house, right? And so growing up in that, it wasn't so much as expectations because it was all that I knew, right? And it's a equal to or less. equal to a less. And so you learn to have thick skin, you know, and my personality is not passive or quiet. But my father, you know, it was one, it's probably the difference with my sister. I didn't argue a lot with my father. I didn't go back and forth. Because not only couldn't I win, but the reality of the track record was better, you know, like, all right, you know, and so you reinvent yourself. And so that's it. And so when I say you run away from pressure, you pick up on it, you begin to do that. But it was the reality. To this day, I remember things that my father taught me and prepared me for. Now, at the time, it would be like, okay, but when you get to that point in life and you recall it, that's it. And so I find myself, other people have their thoughts and ideas, but I know what we talked about, and I know how to be myself and take what I can from him, and I can't emulate him to be something that I'm not. But I also, the greatest thing is the protective nature. And so that's the thing that he used to tell me, son, you have to do this. And I've been very transparent about my health, right? And the things that my father dealt with that I dealt with, and said, okay, he wanted, if he could master that, maybe I can. And so you begin to look at things to give you purpose, to carry that on and use that as motivation. And so I think it becomes particularly sensitive with Crow, because I'm always, that was one thing growing up, even when I was young, you know, I was like, never want to add to someone's burden or be a problem at Crow. And so sometimes you move and remove yourself and pivot as not to cause certain things. And so you also begin to look at things strategically. And so, with that being a son of Brother Munir, you look at how can you fit in, but remember the purpose of being there, right? You don't disrupt it. So, as sisters say, a helper, you find your niche, but you're sensitive to the perception and feelings of others, because it's not so much as what's a challenge for me, it's what everyone else sees and defines. I know when I come in a room, like, that's Brother Munir's son. So for me, I'm going to always give credit to those who are there and those who do certain things, because I had to go out. See, my father told me, he said, son, look, you're going to have to go do X, Y, Z out here. And so that was beautiful. And when we came back to help, see, I was different. See, and we talked about this. If I'm trained in business and strategy out there, because I had to go out and test and learn that way, I understand that when I come in is how to I integrate or apply my skills, my talents, my knowledge into something that's already here. And in defending and preserving what he wanted, that's huge. I could never bring embarrassment to the organization. You may see things that happen, or and Brother Minister Wasim and I talk about this. I will not respond to certain things or do certain things because I know that it's bigger than me. I think being his son, you understanding that you're protecting and preserving something that's bigger than yourself, regardless about how you personally feel. It's that sacrificial nature of it. And when he told me and showed me that it's life giving, I know that. I mean, a life saving teachings. And so it is something that I embrace and hold the responsibility to. But it's something also that I have to take particular care with, because you have to be your authentic self with that as well. My father had the gift of making things relatable. I have friendships and relationships in all walks of life. And so understanding the reality of that, the people have to see something, hold on to something to inspire them. That's what, that's the part of it that I take, with me. And sister, I could say that it's the greatest honor that I have as being his son, and the responsibility, because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. See, if something happened to Crow, whether if I'm there or not, it's gonna still be like what he didn't do or what, that kind of thing. And so understanding that, I don't shy away from that. But I'm always gonna be a brother or a sister. Well, not a sister, but I'm gonna always be a brother to the people because that's my family. See, I have relatives and stuff, cousins, all that, but this
Right.
is my family, and so I think understanding that a believer is better than gold, and on that, it's like, hey, you have to do this, but it's bigger than yourself, and I think that I understand that. I know my immediate family as far as my wife, and I understand that we move with that same purpose, but um, that extension thereof is that to honor him and never disrespect him, his work, his memory is my what makes me to be most careful because I can have my own identity and still walk in the way of this work because I saw him do it, and that's what made him free.
Sir, well said.
And Sister Nicole, if I can just horsey back on that, um, and what the brother was saying, I know we winding down on this particular show, but I want to say, and what made me, I was reflecting on what you were saying, Brother Jamil, and I want to say this to the audience that's listening and to men in general. That's why it's so important to be a father, to be involved in your children's lives, male or female. It's so important for men, especially with black men, to be involved in their lives because we are target. We're 400 years behind. Everybody has a greater start than we have because of our 400-year experience. But the impact of a man in your life will vehemently change the direction of your life because I know without my father, without a man being there, giving me the perspective of a man and teaching and training. I know we have men that have stepchildren. They there, they step in. We had a community in the black community where other community members stood up and other family members in the family. So if a young black boy didn't have a father who was present for many different reasons, because a lot of black men just don't walk away from their children. We have to bring some responsibility to that too, or so accountability, I would like to say, because we're responsible as men, but accountability to men's inability to deal with women and vice versa. So be in that child's life and the impact of Brother Munir and his son is the impact that I see that I'm having here with some of the young brothers here who are not my children. But Brother Munir has spiritual children too, we like to call them. You got Brother Mandine. You got Brother Jamil, you got other brothers that's there that he impacted so much because when you bring that talent that you have from your home, as the Brother Jamil talk about, bring your talents and Al Elijah Muhammad to make it better, is the talent that we can use and to the community. And what better way to do it in a divine sense of light of the messenger's teachings? Brother Benet has daughters too. We heard one earlier, and Sister Kim, and that's the impact that men do. What we do in the microcosm, we can do in the macrocosm, and vice versa. We can. That's the universe that we live in. That's who we are. That's the God we are. Not only could be a God in your own home, God in your own neighborhood, God in your own block, God in your own town, and then maybe you can master the universe. But try mastering where you at first, and gravitate towards that. And that's the beauty of man, as our brother Captain say. I'm starting to see why he keeps saying about the father and mother argument that we have. But that's just another conversation for another time. And it is just so beautiful. So as we wind down, I want to say thank you, Sister Nicole, for doing such a wonderful, wonderful
All
job
praises due to Allah.
this evening. I know we've been here a few hours, and we definitely want to be together to wind this conversation down.
I just want to thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And as you said, just being here and doing the work, it there is a legacy. It's passed down. It doesn't have to be biological. You know, you having the doors open 7 days a week. It may be that day that somebody is coming looking for information, looking to know who this man is. Um, if you all hadn't opened the temple back up again down the street, there wouldn't have been a place for me to be even invited to hear this teaching. So, or have now a place for my children to be to learn. Um, the divinity of it. There's a lot of organizations, but this is the only divine program. Um, so I thank you. Um, Anything you would like to say in closing, Brother Jamil or Brother Minister, winding down on this wonderful weekend?
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, thank you all so much for hosting us again and encourage everyone. Of course, if you want to learn more about the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the history of the Nation of Islam, of course, to reach out to Crow. You can visit us on our website, www.croe.org.
Brother Minister?
And thank you. All praises due to Allah.
All right. Thank you so much. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.